just putting that Raider uniform on meant so much to me. We won 3 straight AFC West titles. We went to a couple AFC championship games, went to the Super Bowl. I went to 4 Pro Bowls as league MVP. I look back at those years, those players that I played with as coaches, the opportunity to play for Mr. Davis, the opportunity to get to know Willie Brown and to get to know Jim Otto and Freddie Blitnikoff and Jim Plunkett, and these are guys that I mean, who would have thought, like, some kid from Philadelphia, right, who watched these Hall of Famers, right, and great players and Raider legends, like, I would be having dinner with them. I'd be, like, sitting on an airplane with them coming back from Kansas City. Like, I'd be, playing golf with them. I mean, it's just, that to me is what I'm most grateful for. I think you look back, I think you realize, like, what are you grateful for? And I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to wear that silver and black. Sitting in John's office, and he said, we're either going to succeed together or we're going to fail together, but we're going to do it together.
Say it one more time for the people in the back.
There's a currency in being Latino, being Chicano, Mexican American, in covering a team as inclusive as the Raiders.
Welcome to Raiders Talk of the Nation. I am your host, Sibley Scoles, and it's time for another episode. The silver and black is representing so very, very much today, like it always does. I am honored to sit down with one of the greatest QBs to go under center with the silver and black. He is an MVP, 2-time All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler. He was an Oakland Raider and a great, and still is, Rich Gannon.
How are you, buddy? It's so good to be with you.
Good to be with you,
What a treat
too.
for me. I thought I was just going to come in and do a quick hit and out, and here I get a chance to sit down and chat with you for a while.
Yes. I mean, last time we spoke, there was a lot of fashion talk. We might get to that. We may leave it out this time.
Maybe a good idea to leave it out.
I thought you were going to wear, your
It's
suit,
just
your
casual.
top hat.
I thought maybe you're going to crop me from the waist up.
We'll just add something.
All right.
We'll superimpose something. What I didn't really get to talk to you about last time, and I would love to go there with you, take me back to Philly. Take me back to that young kid growing up out there, the fresh air that's in Philly. I feel something, when you get off the plane, it's crisp. I like it out there.
Yeah, it's cool.
What was that like for you?
I grew up in a large household. There was 6 of us, and there was 5 boys and my older sister. And for whatever reason, like, my dad loved football. Didn't play football. My dad was an attorney, but my dad loved football. And so all of us played football when we were younger. And I grew up in a neighborhood where all the kids would play football. And so I'd play with older kids, which I think helped me get better. But I just fell in love with the game at a very young age. I never forget when I was in 2nd grade, I told my mom, I'm going to play in the NFL. My mom, I never forget what she said. She said, that's great. She says, but just don't put all your eggs in one basket. She said, you got to make sure you get education. You just never know how things are going to turn out. So I was really passionate about the game from an early age. I loved watching NFL football. And I grew up in Philly, and the Eagles were really a bad team. They were not very good. In fact, it wasn't really until, like, Dick Vermeil got there in the late 70s that they had a good team. In fact, they lost to the Raiders in the Super Bowl down in New Orleans when the Eagles had a really good team in 1980. So I wasn't a huge fan of any one particular team. I was a huge fan of players. Like, I loved watching really good players. And I remember watching, like, Fran Tarkenton. And, I remember my dad, for whatever reason, my dad loved George Blanda. My dad loved George Blanda and Darryl LaMonica. Like, for some reason, like, they were his guys. And we would get, in the East Coast, we would get that late afternoon game. And a lot of times we would see the Chargers and the Raiders, or we'd see the Chargers and the Broncos. We'd get a lot of those games on the East Coast, those late games. And so I saw a lot of Raider games growing up. And of course, they were a really good team. And so I remember, like, the Raiders and Steelers and those big matchups between, all those great players that are now in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So I was more a fan of the players than necessarily of the teams. But I was really passionate about the game from a very young age.
So knowing how your mom felt, don't put all your eggs in one basket, when she started to see what was happening with you in life and football, what were her thoughts as that was going on? Or did she even want you to play?
No, she did. She was very encouraging.
Okay.
I wanted to start playing in 1st grade, but she thought that was too young. So I had to convince her, and she let me start playing in 2nd grade. But I played organized football. My first team, I was on the 65-pound team. That's when I started. I was 65. I had to be under 65 pounds to play on that team in second grade. So she always encouraged me. My parents didn't go to all my games because there was 6 of us, and somebody might have had a game over here or a different sport over here. And so my dad worked hard, and he worked in Center City, Philadelphia. So it wasn't like I grew up and I did it for them. I did it because I loved it. I loved my buddies and teammates and coaches. I just loved everything about the game. So, but my mom and my dad were very encouraging, but never pushy. They never pushed me in one direction. They just encouraged me to go do what I like. But I knew the value of hard work, and I saw it from my mom and dad, how hard they worked to provide for us, to give us the opportunities they gave us, to send us to private schools. And I just felt like, I had some really good role models of what it meant to be a hard worker. And I think, the key to my success, Sib, you know this, I wasn't the most talented. I wasn't the biggest. I wasn't the strongest. I had the greatest arm, but I was convinced not to let anybody outwork me. And when I came to the Raiders in '99, that was really my philosophy. That was really my mindset. That was really what I thought was going to help me help this team and this organization the most, by coming in and being passionate, dedicated, tough, gritty. That's really what I brought to the Raiders in '99.
You did. I had the jersey. Still have everything. And by the way, my dad talked about LaMonica all the time. I have all the programs from when they were at Laney College.
Oh, it's pretty cool.
Yes, good times. To go back on that, if you could talk to that second grader, what would you tell him?
I'm proud of what I've accomplished in my career, only because, I really had to work at it, and nothing ever came easy for me. Especially early in my career, I never felt like I got the opportunity that I really deserved. It really wasn't until late in my career, I was probably 33 years old, when Al Davis and John Gruden gave me that opportunity. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. I mean, I remember sitting in John's office and in my visit to Oakland, and he said, "You want to do this?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I'll tell you what." He said, "We're either going to succeed together or we're going to fail together, but we're going to do it together." And I just remember going down and visiting Mr. Davis, and I was nervous. I saw him on the sidelines, or I saw him on the field before we played, especially when I was in Kansas City, but never really got the chance to meet him. And this is an iconic Maverick, a Hall of Famer, and I just remember going down the hall to meet him, and he asked me some questions, and one of the questions he asked me was, "Do you like to throw the ball down the field? Do you like the vertical passing game?" And I was like, "Yeah."
I enjoy that.
But I just remember just visiting with him, and he's not what I expected. I expected someone to just for someone who was so successful, but he was very even-keeled, very measured, very serious, obviously, about this organization. And he said, to him, he had never said that. He said, the money, because I was getting ready to sign the contract. He said, "You know what?" He says, "At the end of the day," he goes, "the money ain't gonna matter. It doesn't. All that matters is winning." And I saw that. I saw him on the field of practice on Wednesdays and Thursdays. I saw him, late at night when he'd be in the facility. I saw him in the off season. He loved what he did, and more than anything else, he loved winning. And I think, people that came to work for Al understood that, and the bar was high. The expectations were that you'd have a successful season, you have a winning record, that you would win a world championship, and anything less than that wasn't good enough. I can remember going to the locker room after games, and I was just telling Butch on the way over from the airport. I said, we played Buffalo one year, and Barry Sims was making his first ever start at left tackle against Bruce Smith.
Okay.
We went up there and we beat them. But at the end of the game, we did some things from a game management standpoint that probably weren't good, and we gave Buffalo a chance to kind of get back in it. We wound up winning the game. I'm guessing it was 99 or 2000, somewhere in that during one of those seasons. I remember we beat the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, good team, and Doug Flutie was playing quarterback in that game. And I remember coming to the locker room, we're all excited, and there's Al. He was mad. He was really angry because he realized that there was an opportunity for us to lose that game. And he didn't miss anything. His attention to detail was unbelievable. And so, but I just, I could tell you tons of stories about Al, but I just remember how intense he was. And he never let his guard down when it came to the Raiders and to doing everything he could to help build a winner.
Prior to the Raiders and having someone like an Al Davis be a great support system that you don't see from owners all the time in the league, who did you have prior to that you looked up besides your parents?
I never worked for an owner like Al.
Yeah.
I never saw an owner on the field during the week. I'd come from Kansas City. Lamar Hunt lived in Dallas.
Oh, wow. So you didn't.
So
Yeah.
the only time I would see Mr. Hunt would be on game days. I mean, Al was at practice. I mean, I'd see Al in the hallways. I mean, I would go in the weight room after practice, and Al was in the weight room working out with Garrett Guimont. I mean, you just don't see that, you know? I mean, he'd be in there with his, like, sweats on, like, lifting weights. And, you know, he wasn't a spring chicken. So, I mean, that's what I experienced. I never experienced that with anybody else. I mean, I played for 3 other organizations. I played for the Minnesota Vikings, the Washington Redskins at the time, and the Kansas City Chiefs. I never experienced anything like that. So I didn't really have, from an ownership perspective, a mentor, even from a head coaching perspective. I had some coaches that I played for that never truly believed in me enough to hand me the keys to the car and say, hey, this is it. This is your team.
Drive, yeah.
It wasn't really until I got here in '99 with Al Davis and John that I really got that opportunity. And that, to me, was a real turning point in my career.
It's special to have something like that. Do you have any memories in the league that are funny? We're not incriminating anyone, so no names. But for the fans to get a glimpse of what you went through, any moments that really stood out to you?
Oh my gosh, a lot of them are probably funny, but maybe not. You know,
You're like,
I mean,
now that
there's
I
so
think
many.
about
I mean,
it.
there's, you know, I just remember there's a lot of funny things that happened with Al. I mean, some of them, and John and the intensity just between those two. But I'll tell you a story about Al.
Okay.
Real quick. I think it's funny, but when I first got here in '99, like I said, I didn't really know Mr. Davis that well. He'd be at practice all the time. Like, he'd be there Wednesdays and stuff, and I would see him. He'd be right there, and I'd say, hey, Mr. Davis, how are you? So I would always say, hey, Mr. Davis, how are you? And he'd say, how the blink, blink, blink do you think I am? And then he would start saying, well, Steve Wisniewski's got a calf, and James Jett may not play this week because he's got a shoulder. He goes, how the hell do you think I am? I was like, okay. So then, dummy me, the next week, I'd see him out there Wednesday practice. We just got done beating Kansas City in Kansas City. I'd say, hey, Mr. Davis, how are you? He'd go, how the hell you think I am? Start going off about, hey, this guy's not going to play, and I'm worried about this guy. And how are we going to slow down this quarterback? And I was like, okay. So after like 3 or 4 weeks of that, I finally realized, don't be so dumb. Don't ask him how he's doing. So I'd say, hey, Mr. Davis, I want to ask him how he's doing, because he'd tell you. He was so, like, you might win 3 or 4 in a row. And, like, you'd look at him, you thought, we just lost 4 in a row.
Right.
He was so intense and so focused on, like, what had to happen that week to beat, like, you know, John Elway and the Broncos, or to go into, like, Kansas City and beat the Chiefs with that operation, or, you know, whatever. He was so, like, and it was amazing, like, he had a photographic memory when it came to, like the history of the game. Like, he would tell you stuff that happened, like, in, like, a game in, like, 1968. He could tell you about where the quarterback's parents were. I mean, he just had a photographic. There's 2 people in my life that I've met that were like that. Gil Brandt, who was the personnel guy for the Dallas Cowboys, who was very close with Al Davis. Wow. When it came to, you know, you'd say, Mr. Davis, what did Tim Brown, what was his 40 time at the combine? And he'd say, it was like a 4.58. Like, he just had this uncanny ability to remember names and numbers and times and stats. And it was just, and the other thing about Mr. Davis, and I'll finish with this. I remember coming here, and I didn't know him very well. And, you know, I think a lot of people are intimidated by him.
Yes.
And I remember John Gruden coming to me and say, you should get to know this guy. He's an amazing guy. He's a Hall of Famer. And he says he's got a wealth of knowledge. And he says, you should get to know him. And I tried to get to know him, and I was fortunate to be able to play here for 6 years. The other thing that I've never told anybody was that when I get done playing, when I hurt my neck and could no longer play after the 2004 season, Al came to me and he said, do you want to coach? And he offered me an opportunity to coach, and I was floored, and I was obviously very appreciative. But at that point in my life, I was almost 40 years old, and my whole life was about me and my schedule and my travel, and
Right.
and I thought to myself, I have these 2 young daughters, and maybe I should work on trying to be a better dad and being more available and being around a little bit more. And so I didn't do it, but I was so appreciative of the fact that he felt enough about me to give me that opportunity.
Do you think about that opportunity sometimes? I mean, when you have something like that, but you made the right decision,
I got into
right?
broadcasting,
Yeah.
and I've been blessed to be able to do that for, since I retired in '04. And I had some challenges with that. Calling Raider games was not easy.
What was the challenge for you on that? Because
Oh my
I listened to
gosh.
you guys up there, and nope, can't do it.
I just remember, like, after I retired in '04, there was that stretch there where, we had some challenges. I remember we drafted Jamarcus Russell. I remember there were some challenges there. I remember coming to the Coliseum to call a game against the Broncos, and the Raiders just didn't play well. And I work for CBS. I have to be neutral. I'm an NFL analyst, and I've got this affinity and a passion for the one team wearing silver and black, and playing the Broncos. And so I just remember my producer talking to my talkback here, saying, "Hey, you gotta say what's going on here. Why are the Raiders can't make a first? Why, And he's like literally like pressuring me to say. And so I was like, hey, this isn't good. I had to be honest. And I just remember, like, Mr. Davis was not at all pleased with that. And so, but that's how, like, he was so fiercely loyal to and somebody who worked for him, and it was a Raider in his eyes, said something that wasn't complimentary. I think that was hard for him, So I did the best I could. I didn't always say the right things, tried my best, but it's just that's one of the challenges that when you get into broadcasting, it's hard. It was hard for me to watch. It's even today, like when I watch the Raiders, if they don't play well, it hurts. So
Yeah, definitely a difficult job when you're once a Raider, always a Raider.
Absolutely.
So let's get down to the Oakland side of things. First of all, again, amazing. I'm from the Bay. I will say that till the day I die. Just to be able to watch the Oakland Raiders be in that Coliseum, what was it about Oakland?
Well, I remember what it was like coming here. When I was with the Chiefs, and it wasn't fun. I mean, I just remember, like, the black hole, what that was like coming out of that end zone. I just remember standing on the sidelines and, like, just some of the comments from the fans behind us. I mean, it was a really hard place to play, and I just remember the intensity, just leaving the stadium, like, in the buses going out of the parking lot, and, like, some of the comments and some of the hand gestures from the fans. You're like, man, this is just unusual. This is not, like, you don't normally see this. Like, the only other place I could compare it to was maybe, like, Philadelphia, like, just the intensity of the fans.
The fans, right? Yeah.
I just remember, like, the coming here, and then the crazy thing was, I'll never forget my very first game as an Oakland Raider. And it was a regular season game, and we stayed at the Oakland Hilton, and we would have buses that would take us from the Hilton to the stadium, like players. Like, so some players would drive, but a lot of players would just jump on the bus and take the bus over from the Oakland Hilton to the stadium. And I remember, like, sitting on the bus, and I'm just sitting there and going through the parking lot, and there's these people who think that we're the visiting team, and they're going crazy,
Oh, no.
throwing stuff at the buses. And I just remember, like, this old lady going like this, and I was sitting there, and I was like, and she had all this Raider gear on. I'm like, hey, I'm the quarterback. Like, she couldn't see through the glass of the bus. I was like, man, this is intense. I just remember, like, that was my very first Raider game. I'm like, wow, I don't know what I got myself into.
Cue welcome to Oakland.
But that was, like, just the intensity of it, just getting off the bus. I mean, you could feel it, just walking out on the field and just realizing that, like, like some of the greatest Raiders, this is where they played, in the Coliseum. And of course, then you walk out and you see Mr. Davis there in the black outfit with the white towel around his neck, and you go, man, it finally hits you, like, hey, this is real.
It is. It's a whole different culture from other.
It was unlike anything I really ever experienced. And I played for some iconic organizations. The Vikings went to a lot of Super Bowls with Fran Tarkenton back in the day. The Kansas City Chiefs with Len Dawson, and the rivalry and the AFL and all that kind of stuff. It's just pretty different here.
I like to use the word special.
Yeah.
Speaking of, you say icons, Jerry Rice, Tim Brown, Charles Woodson, sharing the field with guys like that, being around that, and obviously probably making each other better, right? Every time you go out there. What were those moments like on and off the field?
When I got here in '99, the team wasn't a great team, and there were some great players, but we hadn't yet become a really great team. And I just remember sitting down with John Gruden, and he said, "Look, this is going to take some time, and you know, we can't get rid of all those players. Like, there were some players that really didn't belong. Like, there were some players that really weren't true Raiders. Like, they didn't get it. It wasn't the most important thing to them." I remember John saying, "Hey, this isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while." And eventually we started getting rid of those players. We started bringing in guys like Jerry Rice. We started, drafting guys like Charles Woodson. We started, bringing in Rod Woodson, Trace Armstrong, and John Perella. We went out and we signed Tyrone Wheatley. We brought in some really good guys that loved football, that were just great teammates. And then that was fun to kind of see that evolution, to a point where, like, we became one of the best and most competitive teams in the league. Like, we won our share of games, but when we did win, it was right down to the wire. We were, you look at that grit factor. We were there every week. So that's what I'm most proud of, is that I really felt like when I came here in '99, it wasn't a good team. I felt like when I left the place in a lot better place than I found it.
What do you think that time in Oakland taught you about yourself?
I think it taught me. I was a different player than than other places. I felt like I had to take more ownership. I felt like I had to be more outspoken. I thought I had to be more demanding of my teammates. I think part of that was what I walked into in '99. I think the team didn't have a lot of great leaders on the team, and it wasn't like I raised my hand, said I wanted to be the leader. It's just I knew that what I was doing was so important to me. I knew that I had a responsibility to Mr. Davis. I knew I had a responsibility to John Gruden and the rest of the coaches, and really the fans, to say, hey, look, if something isn't right, I'm going to speak up and say something. Like, I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. Like, I don't care. I'm just going to be honest and say it. And that was hard, because when you do that, a lot of people want to criticize you. You got some guys in that team meeting room that don't necessarily see it the way you see it. And so those first couple of years were really challenging.
With Coach AP here now, the things that have gone on with the organization, the ups and downs and everything, do you see a similarity of trying to bring that back now, of look at everything that's happened, now let's get back to that grit, that grind of what it really means to be a Raider?
I could ride with AP any day because he's my kind of guy. Like Antonio Pierce, where he grew up, how he played the game, his career path after the game. He got into broadcasting. He got into coaching. He didn't come into coaching with a silver spoon in his mouth. He's had to fight and claw and work for every opportunity. And when you sit down with him and you hear him talk, he speaks from the heart. I think he's very transparent. I think he's really honest with the players. I think players respect that because they know that he's done it at the highest level, that he cares about them, and that he speaks the truth. And AP sometimes speaks the truth that sometimes people don't want to hear. But I think it's important that he's willing to do that. Some coaches don't want to do that. And that's the thing that I've admired about him from the opportunities that I've had to sit down in production meetings with him and talk to him away from that. And I just think that, the Raiders have the right person in place because, he cares about this organization. He cares about these players. And as he said a number of times this offseason, he's tired of losing. Yeah. And I think that resonates with the players. You need to find those players who love football so much and care so much about each other that they'll do anything to make it happen. And when you start getting players like that in the defensive line room, in the running back room, and in the secondary, and you have a couple guys in each of those rooms, and they all come together, then something special can really happen.
And you believe that, right, can happen once you get
absolutely.
it. Yeah, once it happens.
I've seen it happen.
Yeah, you've been parts of it. To know what you brought to this, again, 65 years, can you believe?
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And seeing what they're building today, Do you have one core memory that stands out for you that you're really proud
I mean,
of?
there's just so many.
The
Honestly,
MVP,
just putting that Raider uniform on meant so much to me. We won 3 straight AFC West titles. We went to a couple AFC Championship games. Went to the Super Bowl. I went to 4 Pro Bowls as a league MVP. When I was healthy, we really had it. We had it rocking and rolling pretty good. And so I look back at those years, those players that I played with, as coaches, the opportunity to play for Mr. Davis, the opportunity to get to know Willie Brown and to get to know Jim Otto and Freddie Blitnikoff and Jim Plunkett, and these are guys that I mean, who would have thought, like, some kid from Philadelphia, right, who watched these Hall of Famers, right, and great players and Raider legends, like, I would be having dinner with them. I'd be like sitting on an airplane with them coming back from Kansas City. Like, I'd be, playing golf with them. I mean, it's just, that to me is what I'm most grateful for. I think you look back, I think you realize, like, what are you grateful for? And I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to wear that silver and black.
And still wearing it, and we got alumni weekends and all kind of things, and I think the organization does one of the best in the league.
Nobody does it better.
Yeah, of bringing
Nobody
the
does it
alumni
better.
together.
I know firsthand because I've been to other places. Yeah, I played in other organizations. Nobody does it like this. Yeah. Nobody. And it's real credit to the organization, certainly to Mark Davis, Mrs. Davis, that they care so much about, say once a Raider, always a Raider. I don't know there's another organization that goes to the lengths that they do to make sure that the players are doing well, make sure the players are connected, to make sure the players come back and can be a part of what's happening here today.
Skipping forward to 2024, now we've got a new guy up there, our number 1, Minshew. Obviously has the experience, taking his teams far. What do you think we're going to see from him this season?
Well, I'm excited for him because I just think it's an amazing opportunity. I don't know that he realized that when he signed here that, it was going to turn out this way. Obviously, Aiden coming back from last year, and I thought he did some really good things as a rookie. But for Gardner Minshew, who has spent time in Jacksonville, spent time in Philly, spent time in Indianapolis last year, they're all fine organizations, but they're not the Raiders. And this is an amazing opportunity to play in front of this crowd and in the black hole and with these players and this organization and that logo on the side of your helmet. I think it's an amazing opportunity. I hope he takes advantage of it. I think that's so important. When you get an opportunity like that, you can't look back, and you have to do everything you possibly. That's the thing I'm most proud of. When I look back on my career year with the Raiders, there's no regret. Like, I'm disappointed we didn't win that Super Bowl. I'm disappointed we didn't go to multiple Super Bowls, but it wasn't for a lack of effort. It wasn't because I didn't prepare. It wasn't because I didn't work my tail off. I did all the things that I could possibly do to put us in a position to have a chance to be successful each week. And that, to me, like, that's my message to Gardner. Like, first and foremost, your job is to play all 17 games. Like, can't get hurt. You can't have poor performances. You have to go out and play with great production and consistency each week to take care of the football. You have to put your team in a position to have a chance to win each week. I just think it's an amazing opportunity for him. I hope he takes advantage of it.
Me too. We're going to be watching you, listening for everything this coming season that you have to say, and you get to say what you want now.
Yeah, I hope so.
So, last before you get out of here, obviously Silver and Black Raider Nation is watching. Do you want to say anything to the fans out there?
I'd just like to say thanks. I mean, it hasn't always been, perfect, but I look back on my career and I'm most grateful for the time I spent in the Silver and Black. I still wear the colors with great pride. I realize what it means, what it represents. I walk through the airports in different cities and people shout out, "Go Raiders, Raider Nation." I don't know there's another fan base as passionate and maybe as crazy as Raider fans, and I just think it's pretty cool. And I'm delighted that I still can be a part of the organization and call the games and be part of the show and come back here and try and have an impact on the current players. I think there's an opportunity as a Raider alum and as a former Raider quarterback to share some of the things that I think are important to the current players.
Absolutely. Rich Gannon, you
are
the best.
Thank you. Thanks
you are
for
the
having
best.
me.
We'll see you next episode. This is Raiders Talk of the Nation.